This lab is the qualitative analysis of 11 unknowns. In this lab we have 11 unknowns, and they're all marked with a different letter, and each one is a white powder, so they all look kind of similar. You can tell some subtle differences in their appearance, but our goal today is to analyze them with a bunch of different physical and chemical tests and see what the identity of each one is. So I've started by taking each of our unknowns and putting it into a labeled test tube, just a very small sample of it in the bottom of a test tube, and they're labeled. And what I'm going to do next is see if they're soluble. So I'm going to add some distilled water. I'll add about 5 milliliters of water to each one, and I'll observe whether or not the substance dissolves in water. These are going to be qualitative tests today, not quantitative, so the exact amount doesn't matter. I'm trying to get it around 5 milliliters, but the exact volume of water is not critical. It's just a test of whether or not the substance dissolves in water. And so the amount of water is not too critical. So take a look at these. So clearly K is dissolving in water. I'm going to sort these out by which ones dissolve and which ones do not. J appears to be dissolving in water. I, if we stir it around a little bit, appears like it's starting to dissolve in water. We'll look at H, and H appears not to be dissolving in water. You can see how the substance is cloudy, making the water cloudy, and it's not dissolving. So I'll put that one over here. We have G, which appears to be dissolving. It's making a clear solution. F appears to be cloudy, therefore not dissolving. E, let me stir this one a little bit. E looks like it is not dissolving. The solution's remaining cloudy. D, we're getting a clear solution here, so that one dissolved in water. C is dissolved in water. B is dissolved in water. And A is dissolved in water. So we're left with 3 solutions, or 3 substances that did not dissolve in water, and those are E, F, and H, were not dissolved in water. They've made these cloudy white substances left in the water. So we're going to do a further test on these to further identify them, and that test is going to be adding iodine. So we're going to add a little bit of iodine solution to each of these. And we're going to look for differences in appearance for each of these. So we can see E, it's kind of an orangish color. F is a dark blue or black color. And H is kind of an orangish yellow color, kind of like E. So we can identify F based on the iodine test. We need to do further tests on E and H. To do the further test on E and H, I'm going to replace these with new samples. So these are new samples of E and H that have not been dissolved in water yet, so just small samples of those 2 substances. And the next test I'm going to run on those is one by adding vinegar. So we'll do it first to E. So we'll add some vinegar to substance E. And we should see what occurs here, and you can see no reaction when E is added to the vinegar. And now we'll try the same thing with H. So we'll add a little bit of vinegar to substance H, and we can definitely see bubbling here. We see the production of a gas when vinegar is added to substance H. So those test results, the fact that E did not react with vinegar and that H did react with vinegar by producing bubbles, will allow you to identify substances E and H. So now we have the 8 substances that did dissolve in water. We'll do further tests on these. So these substances, the next test we're going to perform is adding phenolphthalein. So phenolphthalein is an indicator. and it will tell us whether these solutions are acidic or basic. So I'm going to try to just add a little bit of phenolphthalein to each one. And we should have two solutions. Looks like that clearly turned the phenolphthalein pink, and the other solutions remained relatively clear with the phenolphthalein. So we have two substances that reacted with the phenolphthalein. They were substances A and I. And so we'll run some further tests on substance A and I to identify them. We're going to take these away and get a fresh sample of substance A and I. So here's new samples of substance A and substance I. And we're going to do the vinegar test again. We're going to add vinegar to A and vinegar to I and see if either of them react. So I, when combined with vinegar, and we'll see when I reacts with vinegar, we're seeing bubbles again, not quite as much as we saw earlier with substance H, but we do see bubbles being produced kind of slowly when this substance I, is being added to vinegar. And then we'll do the same test with A. So we'll add some vinegar to substance A. And when substance A is mixed with vinegar, we'll see that no reaction occurs. So substance I and A can be identified by the fact that I had bubbles being produced with vinegar and A had no reaction. All right, so our remaining solutions to be identified. We're going to get fresh samples of these. So we have samples B, C, and D. So here's a fresh sample of B, C, and D. And then we're also going to get a fresh sample of G, J, and K. So here's a fresh sample of G, J, and K, the substances that we have not yet identified. So those are just fresh samples that have not been dissolved in water yet. And so with these, I'm going to dissolve them in water again. We know that all these substances are soluble in water. And so we've dissolved new samples of these substances in water. And now I'm going to add a small amount of sodium hydroxide, and we're going to see if a precipitate forms with any of these. So we'll put just a couple drops of sodium hydroxide into each of these. And we'll stir them around, and we'll see if we get a precipitate forming in any of these substances. So a precipitate reaction is when a solid is formed, so you'll see the solution becoming cloudy if you have a precipitate forming in any of these. So let's take a look. So here we have B, C, and D. They look like they all have remained clear, so that's no reaction, no precipitate formed in any of those cases. And then if we look at G, J, and K, we'll see that there is a precipitate formed in solution K. So it's a little bit hard to see. We'll try to hold it up a little closer here. And you can see that solution K has become kind of cloudy. You can see some substance in there, and that is the precipitate that's formed. So K had a precipitate when mixed with sodium hydroxide, and that's why this solution is cloudy, while J and all the other solutions remained clear. So that test will help us to identify solution K. The next test is going to be the test with the Benedict solution. Okay, so we're going to get new samples of solutions B, C, and D. So there's new samples of B, C, and D. We'll also replace the G and the J. So these are just fresh samples of the substances that are still to be identified. And again, we're going to dissolve these in a small amount of water. Okay, so we know all of those are soluble.